Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
Have you ever noticed how destruction rarely shows up with fire and explosions? Most of the time, it's quiet, subtle, a slow erosion of your worth, your joy, your truth. If someone wants to destroy you, they won't always come with fists. They'll come with whispers, with silence, with manipulations that make you question who you are. Today, I want to share with you 5 warning signs. 5 things that, when people do them, it isn't about love, care, or honesty. It's about control. It's about dimming your light so you forget how brightly you were born to shine. When someone wants to destroy you, they rarely start by tearing down the big things in your life. They don't march in and say, "I want to ruin your relationships, your dreams, or your faith in yourself." No. The most destructive people start with something far more subtle, far more dangerous. They make you doubt your own worth. And the reason this tactic is so powerful is because worth is the foundation of everything. If I don't believe I am worthy of love, I won't fight for love. If I don't believe I am worthy of respect, I will tolerate disrespect. If I don't believe I am worthy of joy, I will sabotage the very things that make me happy. Worthiness is the bedrock of the human soul. Shake it and the whole house trembles. I want to tell you a story. Years ago, I had a friend who I thought was supportive. We spent hours talking, and in the beginning, she seemed genuinely invested in my life. But over time, I began to notice a pattern. Every time I shared something I was proud of, she found a way to minimize it. If I got an opportunity at work, she'd say, "Well, anyone could have gotten that." If I posted a picture where I felt confident, she'd laugh and say, "You really think that looks good?" It wasn't obvious cruelty. It was tiny paper cuts. But paper cuts add up. And here's the thing about doubt. It doesn't arrive like a thunderstorm. It sneaks in like a slow leak. At first, I brushed it off. But over weeks and months, I found myself hesitating before sharing good news. I found myself questioning whether I was really that capable, that beautiful, that strong. One day I looked in the mirror and thought, maybe I am just average. Maybe I was never that special. That's how destruction works. Not in one blow, but in a steady, intentional chipping away of your confidence until you are standing in a pile of rubble, unsure of who you are anymore. When someone wants to make you doubt your worth, they often use shame as their tool. And shame, as I've spent decades studying, is the most corrosive force in the human heart. Shame says, you are not enough, not smart enough, not beautiful enough, not successful enough, not worthy enough. And once shame takes root, it becomes self-sustaining. You start to police yourself. You stop reaching, stop risking, stop hoping. You destroy yourself before anyone else has to. This is why people who want control over you know that if they can convince you that you are unworthy, they don't need chains or cages. You will keep yourself small. Think about this: children who grow up in environments where they are constantly told, "You'll never be good enough," often carry that script into adulthood. Even when they succeed, they feel like frauds. Even when they're loved, they fear abandonment. Even when they're celebrated, they brace for rejection. That's the power of doubting your worth. It doesn't just affect how you see yourself, it affects how you allow yourself to be seen in the world. But here's the truth: we often forget your worth is not negotiable. It isn't something another person gets to hand you or take away. You were born with it. It is stitched into your being, like DNA. You cannot lose it, though you can forget it. You cannot break it, though you can bury it. The people who want to destroy you know this. That's why they spend so much energy trying to convince you otherwise. Because once you remember who you are, once you reclaim your worth, their power over you evaporates. So how do you resist when someone tries to make you doubt yourself? First, you name it. You say out loud, "This is shame. This is someone else's projection, not my truth." Naming it pulls it out of the shadows, and shame cannot survive in the light. Second, you surround yourself with voices that tell the truth about you. Pay attention to who claps when you win. Pay attention to who says, "I see you," when you're struggling. These people are your mirrors, the ones who reflect back to you the beauty you cannot always see in yourself. Third, you practice worthiness as a daily discipline. That may sound strange, but think of it like brushing your teeth. Every day you have to remind yourself, I am enough. I am lovable. I deserve joy. Because the world is full of messages that will tell you otherwise. If you don't counteract them, you'll start believing the lies. And finally, you learn to walk away. If someone's words consistently make you smaller, if their presence makes you feel like you're less than what you know in your soul you are, then that is not love. It is destruction. You cannot heal in the same environment that is breaking you. Sometimes the bravest act of worthiness is packing up your heart and saying, I deserve better. Let me pause here and tell you something important. If you've already doubted your worth, if you've already let someone's lies seep in, you are not broken. You are not weak. You are human. We all forget our value sometimes. We all let shame in. What matters is not that you doubted, but that you are willing to remember again. And here's the beautiful, paradoxical truth. When you reclaim your worth, you not only save yourself, you set others free too. You show your children, your friends, your community what it looks like to stand tall in your skin. You remind them that it is possible to unlearn the lies. You become living proof that worthiness is not something we earn, but something we embody. So the next time someone tries to make you doubt yourself, remember this: destruction only works if you hand over the hammer. You don't have to participate in your own dismantling. You can say no. You can set boundaries. You can rise again and again, no matter how many times shame tries to pull you under. Because at the end of the day, no matter what anyone says, no matter how many whispers of not enough you hear, there is a deeper, louder truth written inside: you are worthy, always, already, forever. And no one gets to destroy that. One of the most painful experiences a human being can go through is not just being hurt, but being told that the hurt never happened. When someone wants to destroy you, they don't always raise their voice. Sometimes they quietly twist your truth into a lie. They take your lived reality, your feelings, your experiences, your memories, and they rewrite them in ways that leave you questioning yourself. And the more you question yourself, the easier it becomes for them to control you. This twisting of truth has a name. It's called gaslighting. And while the word has become almost trendy in our culture, the lived experience of it is devastating. Gaslighting isn't just someone disagreeing with you. It's someone making you doubt the very ground you stand on. It's the friend who says, "That never happened. You're imagining things," even though you know in your bones it did. It's the partner who says, "You're too sensitive. You always overreact," until you start believing that your emotions are a problem rather than messages from your soul. It's the boss who takes credit for your work and then says, "You didn't really do much on this project, did you?" It's a slow unraveling of your ability to trust yourself. I remember a story from a woman I once met at a workshop. She told me about her relationship with her father. Every time she tried to confront him about the ways he had hurt her as a child, he would smile and say, "Oh, you've always been dramatic. You love making up stories." She said that for years she believed him. She thought maybe she had been exaggerating. Maybe she was just a child who couldn't understand things clearly. And yet, deep inside, her body remembered. Her heart carried the scars of something she couldn't put words to, because every time she tried, those words were twisted into lies. That's the cruelty of gaslighting. It doesn't just silence your truth, it robs you of your compass. It makes you doubt not only what happened, but who you are. You begin to mistrust your memory, your instincts, your feelings. You start to ask yourself, am I crazy? Am I really that unreliable? And once you lose trust in yourself, you are vulnerable to almost anything. This is exactly why people who want to control or destroy others use this tactic. If they can make you believe that your truth is false, then they hold the power to define reality for you. And when someone else defines your reality, you stop living freely. You live inside their version of the story, one where you are always at fault, always too much, always not enough. But here's what I need you to remember: your truth matters. Your truth is sacred. Your truth is not up for debate simply because someone else finds it inconvenient. Just because someone denies it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Just because someone twists it doesn't mean it isn't real. Your body, your memory, your spirit, they hold a wisdom that no one else can erase. The heartbreaking part of having your truth twisted is that it often comes from people we love the most. It's easier to dismiss a stranger who lies about you. But when it's a parent, a partner, a sibling, a best friend, the betrayal runs deep. These are the people who should have been safe enough to hold your story with tenderness, not weaponize it against you. That betrayal often leaves scars that last a lifetime unless we actively heal them. So how do you begin to heal when someone has twisted your truth into a lie? The first step is believing yourself again. That sounds simple, but after years of gaslighting, it feels almost impossible. It requires you to trust your memory, your body, your emotions. If something hurt, then it hurt. If something felt wrong, then it was wrong. You don't need anyone else's permission slip to validate your pain. Pain is its own proof. The second step is speaking your truth, even if your voice shakes. You don't have to speak it to the person who hurt you. Sometimes that's unsafe or unwise. But you can speak it to a therapist, to a trusted friend, to your journal, to your God. There's incredible power in saying, "This is what happened to me, and it matters." Every time you tell your story, you reclaim a piece of yourself that someone tried to erase. The third step is surrounding yourself with people who honor your truth instead of twisting it. Pay attention to who listens without judgment. Pay attention to who believes you without making you prove yourself. Pay attention to who holds your story like a fragile piece of glass, carefully, reverently, without dropping it. These people are your lifelines back to yourself. And finally, the most courageous step is learning to live beyond the lies. When someone has tried to twist your truth, it's tempting to spend your whole life trying to convince them that you were right. But here's the hard truth: some people will never admit what they did. They will never acknowledge the harm they caused. And if you live your life waiting for their validation, you'll keep yourself stuck in the same prison they built for you. At some point, you have to say, "I may never get closure from them, but I can give myself the closure of choosing to believe my own truth." Let me pause here and tell you something tender. If your truth has been twisted, you are not broken. You are not weak. You are not crazy. You are someone who was manipulated, and that says more about the person who manipulated you than it ever will about you. The fact that you're even questioning what happened shows how deeply you long for honesty and clarity. That longing is evidence of your strength, not your weakness. Here's the most important thing I've learned after years of studying shame and resilience: the truth always finds a way. Lies may last for a while. They may cover the surface like heavy paint. But truth has a stubborn way of breaking through the cracks. Your truth will rise. Your soul will not let it stay buried forever. So if someone tries to twist your truth into a lie, don't hand them your story. Don't hand them your power. Remember, you were there. You lived it. You felt it. You survived it. That makes you the expert of your own life, no matter how loudly someone else tries to rewrite it. And in the end, the greatest act of defiance is not proving them wrong. It's living so rooted in your truth that no one's denial can shake it. You don't have to waste your energy fighting their lies. You can spend your energy building a life that is undeniably real, undeniably beautiful, and undeniably yours. Because your truth is not fragile. Your truth is not negotiable. Your truth is who you are. And no matter how many times someone tries to twist it, it remains strong, unshaken, waiting for you to stand in it again. When someone truly wants to destroy you, they don't always come after your strengths directly. Instead, they come after the people who remind you of your strength. They don't always try to shatter your courage in the open. They try to quietly dismantle the web of love, belonging, and connection that keeps you grounded. Because here's the truth: we are never as strong alone as we are when we are held by others. The people who love us, the ones who remind us of our worth, those who stand in our corner when we forget who we are, they are lifelines. And if someone can cut off those lifelines, they can weaken you without ever laying a hand on you. Isolation is one of the oldest tactics of control. Think about it: abusers, manipulators, even oppressive systems. They all know that if you can make someone feel alone, you can make them feel powerless. And when someone wants to destroy you, one of the first things they'll do is try to pull you away from the very people who would say, "This isn't okay. You deserve better. Don't forget who you are." I remember talking with a young woman who was in an emotionally abusive relationship. She told me that in the beginning, her partner was charming, attentive, loving. But slowly, things began to shift. He started saying things like, "Your family doesn't really understand you like I do." Or, "Your friends don't like me, they're jealous of us." He planted tiny seeds of doubt, nothing too obvious at first. But over time, she stopped calling her best friend. She stopped visiting her parents as often. She stopped sharing her struggles with coworkers who might have intervened. By the time the relationship became openly toxic, she was completely alone. And that's when the control was strongest. Because who could she turn to? Who could remind her that she deserved better? No one was left. That's what isolation does. It strips you of perspective. When you're cut off from people who love you, it's easier to believe lies about yourself. It's easier to believe you're not enough, or that you're too much. It's easier to believe that you're lucky just to have someone who puts up with you. Without the mirror of healthy connection, you lose sight of your reflection. This isn't just about romantic relationships either. It can happen in friendships, in workplaces, even in families. Have you ever had a boss who didn't want you to connect with coworkers because it would distract you from your job? Or a family member who guilted you every time you spent time with friends instead of with them? Or a friend who made you feel like if you had other close connections, you were betraying them? These are not just quirky personality traits. They are subtle ways of keeping you isolated, because when you are isolated, you are easier to manipulate. Humans are wired for connection. We are social beings, built for belonging. When someone tries to sever that belonging, they are cutting into the very fabric of what makes us whole. And yet, so often, we don't see it happening until it's too late. That's because isolation usually comes wrapped in the disguise of love. I just want you all to myself. I'm the only one who really understands you. It's us against the world. On the surface, those words sound romantic, even flattering. But underneath, they are designed to separate you from the people who might see through the manipulation. Here's the painful irony. The people who try to isolate you often convince you that they are the only safe place you have left. And so you cling to them tighter, believing that they are your anchor, when in reality they are the very storm pulling you under. That is the brilliance and the cruelty of this tactic. But here's what I need you to hear. Belonging doesn't mean being trapped with one person who controls you. True belonging expands you, it doesn't shrink you. It makes your world larger, not smaller. If someone truly loves you, they will celebrate your friendships, encourage your family ties, support your community. They will want you surrounded by people who light you up. They will never feel threatened by your joy, your connection, your belonging. So how do you resist isolation when someone tries to pull you away from your support? The first step is recognizing the pattern. Ask yourself, are there people in my life I've stopped talking to since this relationship or connection began? Am I shrinking my circle, not because I want to, but because someone else makes me feel like I should? If the answer is yes, it's time to question why. Healthy love never demands that you cut off healthy love elsewhere. The second step is to intentionally reach back out. It takes courage, especially if you feel ashamed that you drifted away. But most of the time, people who love you will say, "I'm just glad you're here now." Don't let shame keep you from reconnecting. Shame thrives in silence, and silence is exactly what isolation creates. Break the silence by reaching for connection again. The third step is to trust the voices that remind you of your worth. When you're isolated, your sense of self gets blurry. You need people who see you clearly. Listen to the ones who clap when you win, who show up when you're hurting, who don't get threatened when you're strong. Those are the people who help you anchor yourself back in reality. And maybe the hardest step of all is choosing to walk away from the people who demand your isolation. Because here's the truth, if someone insists on being the only voice in your life, it's not because they love you. It's because they fear losing control over you. And you deserve better than control. You deserve connection. You deserve a community that roots for you, that refuses to let you shrink. Let me pause here to say something tender. If you've been isolated, it's not your fault. You didn't fail. You didn't let it happen. Manipulation works because it feels so much like love in the beginning. It feels flattering, intoxicating, safe. The fact that you're even recognizing it now shows that your inner wisdom is still alive, still fighting, still whispering. You were made for more than this. That voice is your lifeline back to yourself. So if someone is trying to isolate you, don't believe the lie that you're alone. You may feel alone, but the truth is, there are people waiting for you to come back. People who will welcome you with open arms. People who will say, I missed you. I still see you. You still matter. At the end of the day, here's what you need to remember. Isolation is a tool of destruction, but connection is a force of healing. If someone tries to strip you of your support, it's because they know how powerful you are when you are loved. And the most courageous act of defiance is to refuse to walk through this world alone. Reclaim your people. Reclaim your belonging. Reclaim your life. Because no matter who tries to pull you away, you were never meant to live small, quiet, and isolated. You were meant to live connected, rooted, and free. And no one gets to destroy that. When someone truly wants to break you down, they don't always need harsh words, shouting, or open confrontation. Sometimes, the most destructive weapon they use is silence. Not the kind of silence that gives space for reflection or healing, but the kind of silence that punishes, controls, and diminishes you. It's the silence that says, you don't matter enough for me to even acknowledge. It's the silence that leaves you pacing floors at night, replaying every word you said, every move you made, wondering what you did wrong. I want to be clear here. Healthy silence is not the same as punishing silence. We all need moments of quiet, moments to breathe, moments where space brings clarity. But silence as punishment is very different. It's deliberate. It's strategic. It's designed to make you feel small, guilty, and desperate for approval. It's not about peace. It's about power. I remember talking to a man once who said that every time he and his wife disagreed, she would go days without speaking to him. Not just quiet, completely cold, distant, withholding affection, eye contact, acknowledgement. He said that he would find himself apologizing for things he didn't even do, just to break the unbearable weight of that silence. And when she finally spoke again, he felt relief, but also resentment. Because he realized that he was being trained, like a dog, to avoid conflict at any cost. That's what punishing silence does. It conditions you to believe that your truth, your feelings, your needs are dangerous, because if you express them, you'll be abandoned emotionally. This is what makes silence so effective as a weapon. It strikes at our deepest human need: connection. We are wired for belonging. To be ignored, to be treated as invisible, is a kind of emotional starvation. Think about it. Solitary confinement is one of the harshest punishments in prisons. Why? Because being cut off, being erased, is agony for the human spirit. So when someone you love, someone you trust, uses silence to punish you, they're not just withholding words, they're withholding love. And love withheld becomes a form of violence. What makes it even more insidious is how it makes you turn against yourself. When someone refuses to speak to you, refuses to engage, you start to fill in the blanks. You start imagining all the things you must have done wrong. You replay every detail of the last interaction. You spiral into shame. And shame is exactly where they want you. Because shame makes you easier to control. When you're stuck in self-blame, you stop holding them accountable. You stop asking for your needs to be met. You stop showing up fully as yourself. You shrink. I remember when I was younger, a close friend suddenly stopped answering my calls, my texts, my attempts to connect. There was no explanation, no confrontation, just silence. For weeks I tortured myself with questions. What did I do? Did I say something wrong? Did I push too hard? It wasn't until years later, with distance, that I realized that the silence wasn't about me. It was about control. It was about making me feel powerless, about erasing me instead of engaging honestly. But in the moment, that silence nearly broke me, because when people withdraw without explanation, we almost always turn inward and assume it must be our fault. This is why silence as punishment is so destructive. It cuts deeper than words ever could. Words can be argued with. Words can be clarified, challenged, healed. But silence leaves you stranded in uncertainty. Silence forces you to carry the entire weight of the relationship on your own. Silence says, you don't deserve resolution. You don't even deserve a response. But here's the truth that we often forget in those painful moments. Your worth is not determined by someone else's willingness to acknowledge you. Your value doesn't vanish because someone decides to withhold their attention. When people use silence to punish, it says nothing about your worth and everything about their inability to engage in real connection. Healthy love doesn't disappear when things get hard. Healthy love leans in, even when it's uncomfortable. Healthy love may need space, but it always comes with communication, not coldness. So what do you do when someone uses silence as a weapon against you? The first step is to name it. Say to yourself, this is not space. This is punishment. This is not about me being unworthy. This is about them avoiding accountability. Naming the truth takes the sting of shame away because it places the responsibility where it belongs. The second step is to resist the urge to chase their approval at the expense of your dignity. Silence as punishment works best when it makes you desperate, when it makes you crawl back just to get scraps of attention. But you deserve more than scraps. Instead of scrambling to earn their voice, remind yourself, I am already worthy of being heard. I do not need to beg for basic respect. The third step is to set boundaries. If someone consistently uses silence to control you, you have the right to say, I will not tolerate being shut out without communication. If you need space, I respect that. But silence meant to punish me is not acceptable. They may not like it. They may even try to punish you with more silence. But boundaries aren't about their reaction. They're about you refusing to participate in your own diminishment. And sometimes, the hardest but most necessary step is to walk away. Because the truth is, relationships built on fear of abandonment are not real relationships. They are cages. And no matter how much you love someone, you cannot keep sacrificing your voice, your peace, your worth, just to avoid being erased by their silence. At some point, you have to choose yourself. I want to pause here and say something with tenderness. If you've been on the receiving end of punishing silence, it is not your fault. It doesn't mean you're unlovable. It doesn't mean you're too much or not enough. It means someone else chose to withhold connection instead of doing the hard, vulnerable work of engaging. That's not on you. That's on them. And here's the good news. You don't have to let silence have the last word. You can break the cycle by refusing to internalize their punishment. You can tell yourself, even if you don't see me, I see me. Even if you don't hear me, I hear me. Even if you refuse to acknowledge me, I will not disappear. That is how you take your power back. Because at the end of the day, silence may feel powerful in the moment, but it can't destroy what is rooted in truth. Truth doesn't vanish just because it's ignored. Love doesn't disappear just because someone withholds it. And your worth doesn't fade just because someone refuses to speak it aloud. So if someone uses silence as punishment, remember this: you are not invisible. You are not erased. You are not small. You are a whole human being worthy of love, respect, and connection. And no amount of silence can take that away from you. One of the most heartbreaking ways someone can reveal their true intentions is not in how they treat you when you're down, but in how they react when you rise. Pay attention here, because this is one of the clearest signs of who wants to love you and who wants to destroy you. People who truly love you celebrate your joy. People who want to destroy you celebrate your pain. There's a certain cruelty in watching someone smile a little too much when you fail, or noticing that their comfort with you seems to grow only when you are struggling. It's as if your pain gives them relief, as if your setbacks feed something inside of them. On the other hand, when you succeed, when you finally break through, when you glow with happiness, those same people grow quiet, distant, even resentful. That's not love. That's not support. That is destruction in disguise. I remember a woman once telling me that when she got promoted at work, she ran to tell her closest friend. Instead of celebrating, her friend's face tightened. She gave a half-hearted congrats, and then quickly changed the subject to her own problems. Later, when that same woman went through a painful breakup, guess who showed up at her door with ice cream, eager to listen? The very friend who couldn't celebrate her success. On the surface, it looked like care. But underneath, it was imbalance. She was only comfortable when her friend was hurting because her friend's pain made her feel safe, superior, maybe even needed. That's what it means when someone celebrates your pain more than your joy. They don't want you whole, they want you broken. They don't want you soaring, they want you crawling. Because when you're in pain, you're less of a threat, less radiant, less likely to outgrow them. When you're joyful, your light exposes their shadows. When you're hurting, your dimmed flame keeps them comfortable in their darkness. The problem is, we often confuse this dynamic with love. We think, well, at least they're there when I'm crying. But ask yourself this, are they there when you're thriving? Do they clap for you when you win? Do they post about you with pride? Do they sit in the front row of your joy shouting, "That's my person"? Or do they vanish, grow cold, or find a way to make your happiness about them? Because people who love you should be able to hold both, your sorrow and your success. If they can only sit with you in pain, but never in joy, that's not love. That's possession. It hurts deeply to realize that someone in your circle is more invested in your struggles than in your growth. And yet, it's one of the most important truths you can face. Because who you surround yourself with will shape the story you tell yourself about your own life. If your circle only amplifies your wounds but never your wins, you'll start believing that pain is where you belong. This is especially common in families. Maybe you grew up with a sibling or a parent who seemed almost pleased when you stumbled, but grew strangely silent when you excelled. Maybe you learned early on to downplay your achievements, to dim your light just to keep the peace. That's not love. That's survival. And the tragedy is, many of us carry that survival strategy into adulthood, constantly shrinking so we won't make anyone else uncomfortable. But let me tell you this, you are not responsible for protecting someone else's ego at the cost of your joy. You are not responsible for staying small so someone else won't feel inadequate. When someone celebrates your pain more than your joy, it says everything about their wounds and nothing about your worth. It means they are so trapped in scarcity, this belief that there isn't enough love, success, or happiness to go around, that they see your joy as a threat. But your joy is not a threat. Your joy is an invitation for others to see what's possible, to rise, to expand, to believe that their light too can shine. So what do you do when you realize that someone is secretly rooting for your pain and resenting your joy? The first thing is to stop confusing their presence in your pain with genuine love. Yes, someone may sit with you when you're hurting, but if they only draw close when you're broken, it means they need you broken, and needing you broken is not love. Love is wanting you whole, even if your wholeness makes them uncomfortable. The second thing is to test the waters of your joy. Share your good news without apologizing for it. Shine without dimming. Watch how they react. Do they lean in, ask questions, encourage you? Or do they dismiss, change the subject, make a joke, or remind you of their own struggles? Their reaction tells you everything you need to know. The third thing is to surround yourself with people who can hold both your sorrow and your success. People who don't feel threatened by your glow, but inspired by it. People who clap loudest when you win and hold you gently when you lose. Those are the ones who deserve access to your most tender places. And finally, you may need to grieve. Grieve the loss of relationships that couldn't hold your joy. Grieve the friendships you outgrew. Grieve the family bonds that never gave you the freedom to shine. Grieve it all. But don't mistake grief for guilt. You are not guilty for outgrowing people who were only invested in your pain. You are simply honoring the truth that you were never meant to stay small. I want to tell you something tender here. Your joy matters. Your success matters. Your light matters. You were not put on this earth to constantly apologize for shining. You were not put here to be someone's comfort project, only valuable when you're broken. You were put here to live fully, deeply, unapologetically. To laugh loudly. To celebrate freely. To thrive without guilt. And yes, it will hurt to realize that not everyone around you can handle that. It will sting to see some people drift away. To notice their silence when you're thriving. But let their silence be your confirmation you are stepping into a version of yourself they can't contain. And that's okay. They were never meant to be the audience for your fullest self. Because at the end of the day, the people who matter most are not the ones who celebrate your pain. They are the ones who celebrate your joy as if it were their own. They are the ones who clap when you shine, who hold you steady when you fall, who never confuse your light for their shadow. Those are the ones worth keeping close. Those are the ones worth building a life with. So if someone celebrates your pain more than your joy, don't waste time shrinking to make them comfortable. Rise anyway, shine anyway, laugh anyway. Because your joy is not just yours, it's medicine for the world. And no one who wants to destroy you should ever have the power to steal it. So if someone does these things, if they make you doubt your worth, twist your truth, isolate you, punish you with silence, or celebrate your pain, it isn't love. It's destruction. And here's the good news: you don't have to let it work. Because the most powerful act of resistance is refusing to shrink, choosing to rise. Looking destruction in the eye and saying, "You may want to break me, but you don't get to